Welcome to my rather poorly lit garage and rather echoey garage. That's going to change as we get our lighting and stuff done, but I've got these figured out. As you see by the title, we're going to talk today about Dynaudio Xeo. And although they're not quite what I was hoping they would be for the garage, it's still a great speaker. I think it has a certain place. We'll talk about that here today. We're going to go into the specs of the different speakers, what I've learned having been playing them for the last, I think I've had them for 2 or 3 months now. I've had them in different environments, the garage, the computer, the big OGHQ garage, and so I've been able to test them, demo them. They're pretty well broken in. The 30s probably aren't broken in yet, but the 20s and 10s are certainly broken in, and higher end speakers tend to take 50, 60, 80, 100 hours of playback to really start to open up, and we still have a ways to go on certainly the 30s, but the speakers do sound like I think they're going to sound in the future. So the first question you'd ask is, what does high-end audio have to do with the garage? I talked about this in the Dynaudio music video. Dynaudio makes a wireless Bluetooth and Wi-Fi capable speaker that we made a video series on, and I talked a lot about my background in electrical engineering with a concentration of electronics. I talked about my background in selling, high-end home theater and designing that stuff in my early 20s, and then just the simple passion for audio. I love this stuff. This is, I've had a pretty exciting life the last 3 or 4 years of waiting for pallets of Milwaukee tools and Sonic tools and every detailing supply I could ever dream of. I feel like my skill set in this world is to chase stuff like this, figure out what makes sense, and then apply it to my own situation, which then by proxy hopefully provides some value to you. And garage is certainly the second place that I listen to audio most. So I listen to audio in the car more often than anywhere else. I'm not really a headphone guy, so I don't walk around listening to music, and so I like to have a killer set of speakers in the garage. What better type of speaker to use for the garage than Dynaudio? I'll explain that as we kind of work through the line. So we have Xeo 10, which is the small bookshelf. This is the optional stand. They make a stand. They also make a wall mount. We have Xeo 20, which is on the SF1 stands, which are terrible, by the way. I won't be carrying these, but this is a Dynaudio stand that give you a slight angle up toward your listening position, especially when it's sitting on a desk if you're using them as computer speakers. And then you have the floor standing. Clearly, you wouldn't put it on your tabletop or your countertop, but I brought it up here just so we can see it. The floor standing Xeo 30. Now, the beauty of these speakers is that they are technically wireless. Wireless, not from a power perspective, because you do need to get power from somewhere, but wireless in that there are no speaker wires. So there's no low voltage wire that needs to run. There's no connection wire that connects speaker A to speaker B, and so that makes them, I guess, technically a wireless speaker outside of the fact that I need to frickin' plug a power cord into the thing. So the advantage here is that if I want to, in my garage, if I have a power outlet, so I plug it into the wall, and if I want to Bluetooth connect my phone to a pair of really great sounding 2-channel speakers, no subwoofer, this would be hard to beat. Pricing on these makes these speakers not particularly accessible to most of us. I understand that, but I also understand that many people want a high quality audio experience in the garage or elsewhere in your house without having to run speaker wires, because you don't have the ability to do that. I mean, the Xeo 10s are $1,500, $2,500 for the 20s, and $4,000 for the pair of Xeo 30s. And I know some of you are flipping your lid right now. I'd rather be upfront with you. This is what the stuff costs. These have pretty remarkable amplifiers, and they put out a pretty remarkable audio experience for what they are. But you know, you've got to spend a lot of money to get this quality of a speaker. Now, we reach a point in audio where there are diminishing returns. In order to make small incremental increases in quality, you've got to spend a lot more money, and that's these fit that category. The long-term goal is to also have some you know, so let's say basic solutions, intermediate solutions, and then this would be our ultimate solution. So let's dig into the speakers a bit. Talk about what I've learned. So the first and most important thing, and the reason why, and you can hear the echo in this garage, the reason why I'm so smitten with the idea of Dynaudio in here is because of this 1-inch silk dome tweeter. So these all are silk dome. They all have the same tweeter, a little bit different baffle, a little bit different enclosure, but these are the signature Dynaudio 1-inch tweeter, powered by 65 watts. And the advantage of soft dome in a very harsh environment. I'm lucky in that I have wood countertops, which aren't particularly friendly for audio, but it's the least harsh material we have in here, other than maybe the drywall. But we have concrete floors, metal doors, metal cars with glass. We have metal cabinets. I'm going to have a concrete backsplash. And so having soft dome, the smoothness of soft dome helps to offset some of the harshness of what we're dealing with here in the garage. And so that is one of the factors of why, you know, I have this love affair with Dynaudio speakers, and applying it to the garage makes perfect sense, and simply because of the smoothness of soft dome. Now, the 10s, 20s, and 30s all use the same. It's a 14 centimeter, which is roughly 5.5 inches. So it's a 14 centimeter MSP driver. The way it's mounted is clearly different on the 10s than it is in the 20s and 30s, and we get some interesting characteristics from the 10, the way that the baffle, the way the port is set up. We'll talk about here in a second. But the beauty of these speakers is they're just smooth, flat frequency response. You aren't going to get a lot of harshness in the garage. What I do want to disclaim here is if you're a lot of males tend to have a difficult time with hearing high frequencies. So every rental car I've ever got in, I see the treble, of course the bass and treble always at +6. These are a flat, smooth sounding speaker. I tend to favor mid-range, and I don't like to hear shrill, bright, in-your-face high frequencies, and that's what these are so great at. And so if you find yourself that type of critical listener like I am, these speakers are perfect. So Xeo, the whole line has switches. So really this is going to be pretty simple. You're going to plug it into the wall. So we take a regular plug, comes with this. I unplugged it so you didn't see the wires here, but it's a regular like cable box power plug with a 2-prong end. You plug it into the wall and it plugs in right here. So the 10s, so the input or the plug input is here. You'll notice that they have a USB connection. That USB is simply for software updates, for firmware updates, which you'll want to be, you don't want to be checking on that regularly on Dynaudio's site. Make sure you have the latest firmware update to, hopefully, as Bluetooth improves, we'll see improvement with these. You also have a stereo RCA input, an 1/8-inch connection for your computer. Plug in your MacBook Pro. I have mine. I've been using these primarily with my iMac, and then you have a Toslink connection, and that's where you're going to get high-res audio if that's what you're interested in. For me, I want to plug these in to the wall, and I'm going to go to Tidal or Spotify, and Tidal for master audio, which is I don't know that it's pointless, but we're going to connect to these via Apple AAC. These are not AirPlay compatible. They're just simply Bluetooth compatible. The only way to get AirPlay is if you bought some, like a Node or something like that from Blue Sound, which we'll have in the future. But this is the way I'm using these is I'm simply connecting via Apple AAC Bluetooth on my Apple iPhone. We'll demonstrate. Bryce will show you how to do that later in this video. And I'm just playing music. Nice, simple setup. The way that these work is speaker A plugged into the wall. So there's a master speaker, and then the other speaker is we'll call it a slave speaker. Now, typical wireless speakers, the master speaker will have the amplifier, the heat sink, the transistor, it'll have the whole power supply built into it, and then it'll have the connections built into it, and it will then have a speaker or low-level output or a speaker output that'll connect to the other satellite speaker. With these, one of the advantages is, especially for the garage, because how am I going to run a speaker wire 30 or 20 feet from left to right? With these, plug into wall, one you connect, it syncs up to Bluetooth, and then speaker A communicates with speaker B at 24-bit 96 kilohertz. So there's no wire, there's no speaker wire. Now speaker B does need to be plugged into the wall, and so in my garage I put outlets in the corner, and so I'm going to plug each into the wall, and that's simple connectivity. One of the disadvantages to these when playing high-res files, if you want to do high-res stuff, you're going to need a separate box to plug in. So you're going to need to get like a Blue Sound Node, or you're going to need some sort of little FLAC player or something like that. Maybe what's that company, Bryce? Moon Audio makes one. It's pretty sick. So if you're really interested in getting the maximum sound quality, you're going to store files on some sort of player, connect it with optical Toslink cable, and then speaker A will communicate to speaker B inside the 24-bit 96 kilohertz, codec. But for me, Tidal, Bluetooth, sounds freaking fantastic. You're in a crappy listening environment in the garage anyway. I suspect that many of you are going to buy these and use them in different areas. But plug it into a wall, connect it to your phone, let it rip. That's what's cool about it. Same thing on the 20 and 30, same exact type of connections. You also have the ability to set up, let's say you wanted to run 10 pairs of $1,500 little baby speakers all throughout the house. You do have speaker ID zones. And so you can set up red, green, blue, so that way you can delineate which one of these is which, and so you just make sure that speaker A and speaker B are set up with the same color code, and then of course you have a switch for left and right. And then we have our speaker position, neutral, wall, and corner. And so when you choose neutral, neutral is going to give you the most bass response. The idea between choosing, or the idea behind choosing wall or corner, corner because these are bass reflex cabinets, they can get kind of boomy sounding. I find that they generally sound best with a neutral switch, but you would just play with it in your listening position to see which sounds the best. Then Xeo 20, same exact speaker. This is the slave speaker here, but you can see the slave speaker, the secondary speaker, doesn't have any connections, but same type of your zone, your left and right choice, and your neutral, wall, corner. And of course the Xeo 30 is identical. So sound, what do I hear? If you're coming off the street, and I would have played, this is obviously in a different category because it's a floor standing speaker, a lot more bass response. This does play down to, I believe, 32 hertz. These play down to 40 hertz. So a little bit better frequency response, a little bit more output because of the larger cabinet. But the difference between these two, if you walk in off the street and I played you 10 versus 20, at first glance, every single person is going to pick this. We don't know why. The crossover appears to be slightly different in the documentation. This speaker's crossed over at 5,000, 5K. This is crossed over at 4,700, probably because of the cabinet size. But at normal listening volume, so at lower volume, this sounds more direct. It sounds like you have more bass response. It sounds better to, I would guess, 95% of people. Now, I spent quite a bit of time in here in the garage yesterday sort of playing with the difference back and forth because I knew I was going to make this video side by side, just switching from one to the next. It appears to me that the sound stage on the 20 is a little bit bigger. It feels like, if you're listening to like a female vocalist that's front and center, and you've got a violin playing in the background, it sounds larger, whereas the Xeo 10 sounds, it's hard to explain. It's just more, there's more bass. That's really all I can say. But when you get up into the higher volume, higher registry, there is some music that you'll start to bottom this. You'll get the woofer bottoming out, which of course you don't want to do. Whereas the 20, I feel like there's a little bit more headroom. These are not speakers to designed to they're not Klipsch. They're not a horn-driven, super efficient speaker. These are smooth, just beautiful sounding speakers that I think are best for the garage. But if you have a huge area, we're probably going to want to do something bigger or something different. But a garage like this, we'll demo them for you. They sound pretty darn good. So the 30 just adds the same, so these are the exact same drivers, it's just crossed over a little bit differently. This has a 3-channel amplifier, where these others are all driven by 2-channel 65 watts, 2-channel 65 watts per channel, or per driver, and then these are a 3-channel, so each driver gets 65 watts. So colors, you have black. They're calling it a satin. It's like right between satin and gloss. So it's almost like a semi-gloss finish in black or white. We're displaying the white version, the Xeo 10. It's kind of an eggshell white. It's an off-white finish. I actually haven't seen the satin black version of, but I'm assuming it's pretty similar to what the 30 looks like here. If you're setting these up next to an iMac, like this Xeo 20 is freaking, I think it looks great. I have it in my kitchen. I think they look freaking awesome set up that way. So you have, they also come with a magnetic grille that the black and white come with the exact same grille. And you'll notice the grille just pulls itself into position, via the magnets. Same thing with the 30. I think one of the key things that delineates these from other options. First, if you go to Dynaudio's website and you start reading about these, they make a Xeo Link. They used to make a Xeo Hub. They make a Dynaudio Connect. My dream for these was that we would set this up in your garage, you plug it into your outlet, you'd connect a subwoofer wirelessly, but these don't have any output. I think that's where the mistake is made. There's only inputs, there's no output of these. And so the way that Dynaudio designed this is they have a box, it's called Dynaudio Connect, which would allow you to have connect a TV or something like that to it. The problem is it doesn't frickin' work. So you can scrap that idea. You're going to buy these for a couple of applications. One, you have an area in your living room or something where you just wanted to listen to music and you didn't want to run speaker wires back and forth. That's one option. Two, you're in your garage, you're never going to connect a subwoofer, you're not going to connect a TV, you're not going to, you just want a very simple wireless system where you have a couple of outlets to plug it into, and you want a really smooth sounding speaker. That's the second option. Third option, which I think I'm going to use these more than anything, is at my computer. One of the problems with doing studio monitors and a lot of computer type speakers, like JBL has a set of studio monitors that like Bryce uses for his computer. The one that's real common are those big Yamaha studio monitors, but you always need a control unit. You always need like an audio interface of sorts, which takes up room on your desk. With these, I can just connect an 1/8" connection right to it, and then I can control the volume either just via volume up down on my computer's keyboard, or these do come with a remote control. So usually what I do is like in my kitchen, I just leave the remote control in the drawer right next to it, and sometimes I may want to just use these as a Bluetooth speaker instead of as with my computer. I'll just switch inputs over and have the option to use these as a wireless Bluetooth set of speakers, or as my computer speakers, just sitting in the same spot. And then of course these could be a great just a great pair of wireless speakers set up in your living room or something like that. But those three applications is where I find these to be most useful.
So we're going to go ahead and walk you through the setup for the Dynaudio Xeo speakers. I'm going to go over the speakers themselves, what you need to set up on the back end, and then what you need to do on your phone. So a lot of these are just the same amplifier setup on the back, and we're using the 20s here as an example. So on the back of this is the main speaker here that's going to have all the inputs and everything like that. And going over the switches here, you have 3 different switches. So there's a speaker position switch. So you have neutral, wall, and corner. So neutral is going to give you, no EQ. It's just going to be flat out what the speaker will do with this cabinet. So you'll get the most bass out of this. And then they have wall, so you just go down like that. And what that will basically do is dip your low end frequency a little bit with an EQ. So like a lot of people know, if you put a speaker in a corner or a wall, it gets a little bit boomy just because the bass is trapped in there. It's making a little bit more bass. So this will do a dip on that part of the frequency. And if you do corner, it's going to dip it just a little bit more in the frequency range, so you're not getting boomy bass and it sounds terrible. So that's all this does. In most cases, I think a lot of you will just be in neutral. These are not going to have like crazy amount of bass where it just sounds terrible. And then on here is left and right, so you can designate which speaker is the right, which one is the left, so you get the right stereo imaging from whatever you're listening to. And then the last switch is your zone switch. So you can set these up in multi-room, and this will be displayed on your Bluetooth ID of the speaker. So I have these in red, and then when I power them on and I look in Bluetooth, you'll actually see, it'll say Xeo 20 red. So now it's like, oh, my living room's red, my garage is green. Or if you want to play all of them, I guess you could. No, I probably want to do that. They probably won't be able to reach each other. So that's how you want to set up the switches here. Now on the back side of the actual main speaker, you have RCA left and right input. So you can use, like a little portable player, you could use a turntable, a separate device like a Blue Sound node you could plug in here. You have an optical in, which is a Toslink, actual connection. That's going to be your best connection for the highest delivery of music. So you'll get a full output of what these can do, bit rate and sample rate. And then the other thing we have here on this one is a service port. So it's a USB. You do not plug that into a computer as a DAC. This is only used to do firmware updates from the Dynaudio website. And the last thing we have here is a power connection. So that's where you just take your supplied power cord. Looks like an old PS2 little power cord here. You just plug that in. Each speaker has one. Power will not be delivered. Each one has their own separate amplifiers for each driver. So they both need power. So that is how you set up the back end of your Xeo speakers. So we're gonna go ahead and plug these in and show you how you set up the wireless connection to your phone. Now that we have the back of the speaker set up and the power plugged into each one, you're gonna wanna set up your Bluetooth connection. So in your box, you'll get a remote. Looks like this little guy right here. So we wanna hit the power on, like that. You'll see a light turn on the front, and then you wanna go ahead and hit the Bluetooth button right here So hold it down until you start seeing some flashing on the front of the speaker. So we're going to jump ahead here, and you want to go into your Bluetooth settings. Bluetooth is going to show up down here once we hold down our Bluetooth button. So we'll just wait for them to show up. So now you see Dynaudio Xeo 20 red zone, which is what we set up the zone as on the back. Let's go and connect. So now you're connected, and now you can go ahead and stream whatever you want through Bluetooth. So you go to Spotify, stream to the Bluetooth speaker through there. You can go to Apple Music, YouTube, and you're just set up and ready to go. So that's how you go ahead and set up the Bluetooth streaming on the Xeo speakers from Dynaudio.
So I probably should have said this in the beginning, what my recommendation was. I'm not 100% sure yet. This is on a case-by-case basis. We're going to compile all of the data from various systems. My intent is to have a wireless type system, a studio monitor type system, and then a traditional passive receiver slash set of speakers set up in the garage. In my garage, I pre-wired it, and so I was able to run some wires, and so I'm going to be doing a traditional passive system. Of course, the fourth option is you just get yourself like a Dynaudio Music, or get a pair of Musics, which can be like a little wireless, Bluetooth type speaker. My recommendation is probably largely going to be if you're music only and you can't run a bunch of wires and you can't put a subwoofer somewhere, I'm probably going to buy these Xeo 20s. I think that the sound stage, I think that the way that these sound, if you don't hear the A/B difference, you're not gonna miss. It's not like these are lacking in frequency response. This has more headroom, more output, especially if I have a 3-car garage like this. I think that these deserve a place in the OG store because there are going to be quite a few instances where they make sense for people, and I freaking love them. I think they're fantastic. And then hopefully in the future they'll continue to firmware updates to maybe we could start running subwoofers and things like that. I know in the manual it'll tell you can run a subwoofer, but I'm telling you don't want to go there. We're pretty darn sophisticated when it comes to setting things up, especially since we're writing instructions and attempting to teach people how to do this. We got it to connect once, but that was it, and it took a few hours to do. So doing Dynaudio Connect and Dynaudio Xeo Link is just not really a good option at this point. But from a pure standalone stereo set of speakers, they're pretty freaking legit. You can't go wrong with either of these, and both colors, they look fantastic. We will be stocking these, and again, I think if you have a couple of plugs in your garage, you're going to set it up in the corner, and we're going to have likely I'm going to try to chase some isoacoustic stands for these, so you can decouple it from your worktop. I think that 10s, 20s, or if you have a bigger garage where you have a place to put floor standing speakers and you don't want to run wires, they're pretty sweet. So, available in the OG store. Thanks for watching.